I was Yasha, but Rico from Street Scores, and I'm coming with some major Washington Commanders OTAs updates. Again, all of the information that I get is usually from all of the reporters or anybody that attends, so I don't always have every bit of information. Sometimes you got to listen to the different podcasts from different people who have access to those OTA practices. And then after you listen to John Combs and Logan Pauls's, we have some really interesting takeaways. First of all, cornerback Emmanuel Forbes is not starting as of right now. Also, Luke McCaffrey is being used as an X receiver instead of like Terry McLaurin or Jahan Dotson. And then also Quan is your starting free safety as of right now. So we're going to dive into all of that, what all of that means, what's the potential, why that is all happening at those different position groups with those different players and things like that. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content. Keep y'all updated everything Commanders. I've been talking about OTAs and random other things since the past couple of days, but I'm about to get right back to my record prediction, probably coming out with that sometime. I mean, right now it's 11/26, May 17th, but maybe at sometime during Saturday, as in tomorrow, but by the time y'all are watching this the same day, I'll go ahead and put out my record prediction, because again, I'm taking the time to really do deep research with it. I'm not just eyeballing it and just saying, I think we'll beat them. No, I'm coming with advanced stats. I'm coming with matchups like the Cincinnati Bengals, their receivers versus our DBs, especially, I mean, things that matter, like include how early in the season we're playing them. If it was like week 10 and maybe our secondary has had more time to gel, maybe I'm a little bit more confident going into that game. But seeing them week 4 doesn't sound too fun. Week 3 or week 4. So I'm like really analyzing and breaking all of that down in my record prediction. That video is probably going to end up being like an hour long. So make sure you stay tuned for that content and more. But instead of wasting more of y'all time, let's go ahead and get to this video. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so let's start off with the fact that Luke McCaffrey is apparently the X receiver in practice right now. Logan Paulsen was on his podcast with Craig Hoffman, and he said that McCaffrey has been playing some X receiver. Not like only X receiver, but the fact that he's playing X receiver at all is very interesting. So even though I personally saw Luke McCaffrey being like our big slot and like a Puka Nacua like role, who I literally comped him to like a faster, quicker Puka Nacua, him being the X receiver actually could make sense though, because he is our tallest receiver right now. Like out of our entire roster, outside of Bryson Tremaine, who's probably a practice squad player, but you never know. He's been making plays so far early in this offseason. Maybe he makes enough plays to where he actually ends up making a 53-man roster, but it is a long shot. He has a very tall hill to climb as far as that goes. So out of all of the guys that we can project to actually make this 53-man roster, Luke McCaffrey is our tallest receiver right now. But at the same time, he doesn't really seem like an X because, one, he's a rookie with only 2 years of receiver experience in his entire life. That's literally it. And also, being an X receiver means that you're very nuanced, especially when it comes to dealing with getting pressed by corners. You typically put a receiver in the slot so they don't have to deal with getting pressed by outside corners, especially the level of cornerback play that you have at the NFL level. You can maybe get away with it in college, but at the NFL level, if you can't beat press man, you are like automatically demoted to a slot receiver. And maybe demotion is like a harsh, maybe a strong word to use, because there's a lot of elite slot receivers that are just, that's what they're great at specifically. But either way, usually a guy that wants to play as an X receiver ends up being a slot receiver because they can't beat press man. And do we know if Luke McCaffrey can beat press man? He's only been playing receiver for 2 years of his entire life. I know I keep saying that in this video. I've said it several times in other videos, but I really want to emphasize that. And typically a guy that hasn't been playing receiver for a very long time is not usually the guy that you can bet on having the right technique and nuance to beat press man, because it's more technique and nuance than anything else. It's not necessarily about speed or strength or things like that. I mean, that plays a small part. It's way more about having a release plan, having a release package, knowing exactly what to do and how to do it type of things. And again, I'm not sure if he has that yet. And then also number two, He even played slot way more in college, like 3 times as many snaps in the slot than he played outside for the 2 years that he has been playing receiver in college. But so far in this OTAs, they could probably just for one be experimenting to see it just if he can at all. Like if he could just somehow have the ability to do so even with very little college experience of doing so at the X, then hey man, maybe we found a gem. Or 2, maybe there's another reason for it. Maybe they're just cross-training him to be able to play every receiver position so that we don't have to be very strict and have defined receiver roles in our starting group. Because a lot of people already argue that Terry McLaurin can play every receiver position, X, Y, and Z. I would agree. And even a lot of people would also argue that maybe Jahan Dotson can do the same. So if Luke can play all 3 roles just like those other 2, even though I'm not necessarily sure about Jahan Dotson because of how small he is, I think he's more of a slot guy, but maybe he can make it work. But either way, if Luke can learn all 3 roles as well, that would make it nearly impossible for defenses to predict our route concepts and prepare for us heading into games. Because what if, best case scenario, that actually becomes a thing? Then Cliff Kingsbury would be able to pick who's the X, who's the Y, and who's the Z, depending on matchups going into every game, or maybe even different plays or different series and possessions within the same game. Maybe Terry McLaurin's the X this play, and then maybe Luke McCaffrey's the X the next play. And so that type of offense, that type of ambiguity would keep defensive coordinators up at night. They would just be like, what do? We don't know what these guys are going to do any given play. How do we strategize against that? And the majority of the battle in football is strategy. And if you don't know what an opponent is doing any given moment, you've already pretty much lost the battle. Or if we were to just throw all of that out of the window that I just gave you, what if they're just trying to get Luke to actually be the permanent X? What if they actually see him to be that guy? And then from there, I guess Terry would technically be the Z, and then Jahan Dotson would be the slot because, again, he's pretty small. He's the smallest of the 3 receivers by at least 10 pounds, like minimum 10 pounds. Like Luke McCaffrey is like 11 or 12 pounds heavier than him right now coming out of college. He's probably going to be heavier than that by the time week 1 actually starts. And Terry McLaurin is like 20 pounds heavier than Jahan Dotson. So you would just probably go ahead and move Jahan Dotson to the slot to hide him from the press man coverage, because I'm not very confident in his ability to consistently beat press man coverage. So if they actually do see him as a permanent X, that's probably how that will work out. But right now, before this report that Logan Paulson came out with saying this from the OTAs practices, what he's seen, I would have predicted that Luke would have been our big slot, Terry would have been our X, and Jahan would have been our Z. That would have been my guess. But now with this interesting update, I'm not too sure anymore. But maybe this is just an experiment, like I brought up earlier, just to literally see if he can handle that. And you never know. If he can't be an X receiver until you actually ask him to do it and see if he can or cannot. So I like the fact that we're at least experimenting with things. This is the time to do that. It's OTAs, it's voluntary practices right now. And even though it's voluntary, I love the fact that we have 100% participation right now. Like I predicted a few months ago, I'm not surprised, but that's still saying a lot about how this team is buying into what we're creating here and what we're building here within the first year of this rebuild. I love it. But either way, man, I'm super excited. Keep experimenting, keep trying new things and see what works by the time we get to week 1, so we can have the best possible combination of players, the best strategy, the best personnel groupings for specific situations and things like that. I love it. And again, at the end of the day, this could all just be cross-training, just in case maybe Luke is the X one game or one possession, one play, then maybe he's the Z or the Y another one. So who knows? Now moving on, we also have a report that Quan Martin is starting at free safety, as said by Logan Paulson. Because Logan Paulson also said that he noticed at the practices and OTAs that Quan Martin is playing mainly safety with Jeremy Chin. And I'm just going to go ahead and assume that Quan will be the free safety and Jeremy Chin will be the strong safety, just simply because I thought Jeremy Chin, if anything, would be a star position hybrid linebacker around the line of scrimmage. So I'm assuming just by that alone, Jeremy Chin is not the free safety and that Quan Martin is your free safety. And so then you have Quan Martin at free safety and Jeremy Chin at strong safety. That's really interesting, because we have a lot of talent in this secondary. We may not have a lot of floor, we may not have a lot of veteran leadership, but we have a lot of talent, especially in this safety group. Because if you think about it, Percy Butler is a fast and rangy free safety that can also play slot corner, but still inconsistent and raw, but the talent and potential is there. Derek Forrest has shown serious flashes at free safety, even though he's built like the hybrid linebacker. This guy can literally play as like a small hybrid star position linebacker if he wanted to, but he prefers to play free safety, and he has the athleticism, speed, and range to do so if he wants to. Then rookie 5th round pick Dominique Hampton played free safety probably the majority of his time in college, but I see him, especially with his size, his length, being more of a star position hybrid safety linebacker type of guy at the NFL level. Then you have rookie 2nd round pick Mike Sanderstill. I think he's best in a slot corner. I think he has the potential to be literally the best slot corner in the entire NFL, but he can also play a little bit of safety. And then you have our undrafted free agent, Tyler Owens, who's arguably the biggest freak in the entire NFL, and we have him as safety just at the back end of our roster. I mean, right now he's literally unplayable how raw he is, but he's going to flash in camp. And that guy, I mean, if you're just the freakiest athlete probably in the entire sport, I mean, how can we limit you to any one particular position? I mean, if that guy wanted to switch to receiver, he would probably be a really good receiver if he can learn how to get that going. I mean, this guy could probably turn into an elite edge rusher. I mean, you just never know with that type of athleticism. That's my point with Tyler Owens. And then on top of that, you have Quan Martin, who literally played every position in the secondary in college. He even played outside corner at Illinois. And he mostly played star hybrid safety linebacker role last year, nickel corner. But now he's moving to what I would assume is the strong safety position. I thought he would be next to Derek Forrest with free safety, and then Jeremy Chin would be a star hybrid linebacker safety guy. And really my main point is that we have so much talent and versatility in our safety group. So many guys can do so many different things that you can get really creative with the combinations. And I mean, what better coaching staff than this one, where most people would argue that Dan Quinn and Joe Wood Jr. are some of the most creative minds in all of football as far as scheming up pressures and coverages and all of those type of things. So I love the fact that we have this much versatile talent in the hands of these creative coaches that we have for the Commanders now. So I feel like it is definitely best for Joe Witt Jr. and those guys to experiment as much as possible, just like with Luke McCaffrey on offense. Experiment with this secondary, especially, as much as possible in these offseason practices to see what our best combination is, honestly. And so now with this first experiment of Quan Martin at free safety instead, and then Jeremy Chin at strong safety, because again, like I just said, I envisioned it as Derek Forrest free safety, Quan Martin strong safety, Jeremy Chin star hybrid linebacker safety type of guy. But right now it sounds like Quan Martin is your free safety, Jeremy Chin is the strong safety, and I'm assuming that we're doing all of this to allow Mike Sanderstill to start in the slot as like more of like a smaller star role, more of like a nickel corner, but basically that additional DB that's on the field instead of a linebacker. That's pretty much all they are. Even though Jeremy Chin is like way bigger and Mike Sanderstill is way smaller, they're basically essentially just taking a linebacker off the field. That's their whole purpose, to help with coverage. And so this seems to be the first setup that they're trying out so far in off-season practices. Remember that this is from the first week of OTAs, so no matter how well that combo may work, I'm pretty sure they will still try more combinations throughout the offseason. So my point is, if we hear next week in OTAs that there's a different combination of starting safeties out there, do not assume that that first one that we're discussing, talking about today, didn't perform well, and that's why they switched it up. I feel like, if anything, they're probably just going to try a bunch of different combinations on purpose, and I prefer it that way. But at the same time, don't assume that this first experiment and combo is what's going to be the combination that we walk into week one with. Don't assume that, yeah, this one is the first one that they tried, so maybe this is the one that they're initially the highest on, and then that's what is going to end up being week one. You never know. Another safety combination, another DB combination out there may surprise us and may actually end up being the best one for us. That may not include Quan Martin free safety, my fault. I really just see him as a strong safety in my head. Quan Martin free safety, Jeremy Chin strong safety, and I'm assuming Mike Sanderstill as your nickel corner, your extra DB on the field. But just to take it all the way back real quick, I think out of this entire secondary, Free safety is probably third on the list of positions I think that Quan Martin will be best at. I'm not going to lie. I would say outside corner last. Obviously, I feel like that out of any position in the secondary, that's the one that I want him playing the least. But I would say free safety is probably third. Then I would say the position that he played last year, that star hybrid linebacker, extra DB on the field, nickel guy role is probably second. And then I thought strong safety was first. If it were up to me, I think strong safety is his best position potentially. But I can also see the logic of do whatever it takes to get Mike Sainristil and Jeremy Chinn on the field at the same time as much as possible. Even if Quan Martin is slightly better at strong safety than free safety, it's probably worth it to have him at free safety just because Jeremy Chinn is just that much of a freak athlete with a crazy high ceiling, and then Mike Sainristil should be on the field as much as possible as well. So I'm thinking that's the logic with this first combination of safeties right now. Now, Mike Sainristil is more of like a slot corner than anything else by far, but I mean, you just never know. Because if you like Mike Sainristil that much, which again, I think he has the potential to be the best slot corner in the NFL, you want him on the field as much as possible. Which means that's one less safety you can have on the field out of all of the other talented safeties that I just named that we have on the roster. And I think Jeremy Chinn is best at the star position, like a hybrid safety linebacker role. But if you want Mike Sainristil on the field, then that means Jeremy Chinn can't play that star position. He's going to have to move up the strong safety. And I really feel like that's the core of it. Like, when you really think about it, it all really starts with Mikey. To play him on the field as much as possible, you have to move Jeremy Chinn to strong safety instead of star. And with Chinn at strong safety, to keep Quan on the field, now you got to play him at free safety. That just seems like the logic behind all of this. So this is really more of like a, how do we get our most talented players on the field at the same time situation? Instead of prioritizing which position each player is specifically best at, like naturally just off rip coming out of college or what they currently are as of today, and sacrificing overall talent on the field, this shows that they really just want to have the best players possible on the field, and then they'll just figure out the scheme and fit and all of that after that. We just want the most talented guys out there, and even if they're not necessarily best at what they're currently doing, hopefully they can grow into that. I mean, I can see the logic. I'm not mad at it at all. Again, this is the time to experiment, and that sounds like our highest ceiling combination right there. It may not be our highest floor. If we had to play a game tomorrow, maybe you would not prefer for them to go out there and run that exact combination of DBs with Quan at free, Jeremy Chinn is strong, and Mike Sainristil in the slot. That's permanent. Keep him there no matter what. But the problem is, Mike Sainristil, if he's your slot corner, Jeremy Chinn is better at the star, it's really difficult to have both of them on the field at the same time. So naturally, that's what you would have to have. I don't think if we had to go play a game right now, week one, that would be the combination you would throw out there. But I can see why they're going to go ahead and start OTAs with that, because that's probably our highest ceiling combination. If it does work out, that's like your best case scenario in the safety group right there, or the DB group just in general, ignoring the actual outside corners. And now moving on, speaking of outside corners, what is this about Emmanuel Forbes not starting? This is really interesting. So ESPN reporter John Comm said on his podcast that he believes that Emmanuel Forbes will not be starting to begin the regular season, like week one. He said, quote, "No, Forbes does not immediately start. There's no way that they could do that," unquote. And those are some strong words. But then on top of that, Logan Paulson also said the same thing in his podcast. In the same podcast that he said that Luke McCaffrey has been getting a lot of reps at X, the same one where he said Quan Martin and Jeremy Chinn have been your starting safeties, again, assuming Quan is your free and Jeremy Chinn is your strong, he said that Benjamin St-Juste and Michael Davis have pretty much been your starting outside corners so far in OTA practices. And I sort of agree with Disco when he brought this up and made this point on Twitter when he said, quote, "It would be a major setback to the rebuild if they miss on Forbes. St-Juste is coming off of a bad season, and he's already coming up off his rookie deal this season. And if you have two starting cornerbacks washed out, then that's a major problem. But I'm hoping for the best," and I completely agree with that. And moving on, that's a great point about both of our starting corners right now, because we're in an ugly contract situation in our cornerback group. Because as of today, Benjamin St-Juste and Michael Davis contracts end after this 2024 season ends. So right now, Emmanuel Forbes is the only corner out of our top three outside corners whose contract goes beyond this current season. And if he's not good enough to start, we are in big trouble, dog, especially 2025 and beyond. So that is scary. But at the same time, even though it is a problem, I don't want it to seem like this is necessarily a problem that the current regime created. Yeah, they could have done more in the offseason to maybe bring in more cornerback talent, but I like the fact that they're at least seeing what they have first before we overreact. Stephon Gilmore is still available as a free agent right now. If Emmanuel Forbes or whatever this combination of our top 3 starting outside corners are, if they're not as good as we hope and as we need them to be going into week 1, I wouldn't be surprised if they go and get a Stephon Gilmore. Just like if Cornelius Lucas doesn't look good enough at left tackle right now, Trent Scott, or if Brandon Coleman, our 3rd round pick, isn't ready, I wouldn't be surprised if they go hit up David Bakhtiari or one of those veteran left tackles that's still available. So, don't panic, but I don't want this to seem like this is like a current regime problem. If anything, blame the previous regime for this situation that we're in. And we have time to deal with it, so we'll see how this goes. I just want to make sure that we take the heat off of Adam Peters and those guys. But also, don't forget, even though this regime doesn't have Emmanuel Forbes as a starting corner right now, Emmanuel Forbes had a top 30 visit with the Cowboys last year going through the draft process. And there was also a report that said that the Cowboys would have drafted him with their 1st round pick if we didn't before they had the chance to. So it looks like this defensive staff, led by Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr., really seemed to like him. So don't take Forbes not starting as a sign that they may not just like him at all. Like this is just a previous regime's trash, just another Ron Rivera type of guy. I would argue that Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. probably like him almost just as much. Maybe. We'll see how everything goes. And also, I think people are reading into this situation the wrong way with how John Quan worded it. It seems more like a situation where they are not handing him the starting job off rip, and that Forbes is going to have to go out there and earn the starting job more than anything else. And the reason that he's not starting day 1 is more so because of seniority right now. Because both St-Juste and Michael Davis are veterans that have been in the league for at least 3 seasons. Forbes has barely even played enough snaps last year to even technically qualify as an entire rookie season. He's still halfway out of college, really. And John Quan even went on Twitter to clarify what he exactly meant. Out of the several tweets and replies that he had on Twitter addressing the situation, the main Twitter interaction that I felt was the most relevant was this one right here, where you see @KBarnes121 said, "I don't believe that's the context of what was said by Quan. I think it was more of a Forbes just can't be handed the starting job after what everyone saw last year from the 1st rounder." Then @JDanielsMVP said, "Yes, that's true. Quan briefly mentioned that towards the end of the clip." And then John Quan himself came and said, "Correct. Wasn't about the starting the season, was more about opening camp in that role. If he proves himself, good for him and the team." And then he also said in another tweet, "Yep, if he wins it, he will have earned it. I'm curious to see how he does. Always need to give people and players a chance to learn and grow." And I love the fact that they are making him earn it. I'm a big fan of that. I believe he'll accept the challenge and end up working harder this offseason to earn that starting job than he would have if the Commanders just gave him the job off rip. Maybe he gets a little lazy or complacent. You never know. And I believe that he will become a better player because of the fact that he wasn't handed the starting job. So I love it. But also, one thing that people may not have thought about, he may actually not be good enough today to start over St-Juste and Michael Davis anyway. Like, it may not even be like a strategic thing like, well, you're a 1st rounder from last year, you need to go out there and earn it. Maybe it's literally just as simple as, like, it's not even a motivational thing. Maybe it's literally, if we just had a game tomorrow, St-Juste and Michael Davis are literally just better than him right now and would be our starting corners. Again, he barely even played a rookie season worth of snaps last year between injuries and getting benched. So whereas St-Juste and Michael Davis have gone against a whole long list of great receivers in the NFL already and have had success in spurts against them. So maybe not the most consistent corners that are out there and that are on our team right now, but at least we've seen flashes in extended periods of time where Benjamin St-Juste 2 years ago looked good. And same thing with Michael Davis. If we can get 2022 St-Juste and Michael Davis, those are really good starting corners for you right there. They both just had pretty poor 2023 seasons. I blame Michael Davis's on coaching more than anything else. St-Juste is a weird one where it's a little bit of coaching, but it may also be a lot on him. So we'll see if with this new scheme, this new defensive setup, the players around them more pressure pressure in front of them than what St. Juice was especially getting last year with the edge rushers we had and the front seven that he had in front of him. So maybe we can see these guys bounce back. But either way, at the end of the day, both of these guys probably should be your starting corners right now. It may not even necessarily be like a mind game thing with Emmanuel Forbes where you got to earn it. It may just simply be, hey, he's not one of the two best corners we have on roster right now. Maybe one day he can become that, hopefully sometime this offseason before we even get to week 1 of the regular season. But I wouldn't be surprised if we go out there week 1 and Emmanuel Forbes is not one of your starting 2 outside corners, because again, to go back to my point, we have all of these DBs and other position groups that we want to play. Mike Sanford, is going to be really hard to keep him off the field. Same thing with Jeremy Chin. Quan Martin, I think Derek Forrest has enough potential to start. I mean, you can only have but so many DBs on the field, so if Emmanuel Forbes is not better than St. Juice or Michael Davis by the time week 1 gets here, it's going to be hard to get him on the field, because we already have enough spots being taken up by Mike Sanford still almost being like another safety or another corner on the field, which only leaves you the option of having 2 outside corners out there at any given point. So Emmanuel Forbes is not only fighting against St. Juice and Michael Davis, he's also fighting against all of the other DBs out there as well. So it's going to be really interesting, because even when you look at the linebacker group, Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner are obviously your top 2 linebackers, but I think Jamin Davis deserves some shine and some chance to play. Dominique Hampton has looked good in camp so far. He's been doing a great job against Zach Ertz as a rookie that's only had like 4 or 5 practices under his belt so far, just getting to the NFL. We have so much talent there. Boy, Emmanuel Forbes, you got to fight for it, man. Again, it's not just Benjamin St. Juice and Michael Davis in your way. It's all of these other guys. You need to show Joe Witt Jr. and those guys that you deserve to be on the field more than Dominique Hampton, more than Jeremy Chin, more than these other guys. If anything, keep me as a 3rd corner over keeping a 3rd safety on the field or a 3rd linebacker. I'm such a great corner. You can't sit me and put me on the sideline. So that's what he's competing up against. It's tough, but that's a great problem to have. That shows that we have a lot of talent here, and we also have some coaches that are willing to give everybody an opportunity to show what they can do, and they're going to experiment and see what are the best combinations that we have. And I'm excited to see what we walk into week 1 with. Well, of course, we'll get some sneak peeks in the preseason, but week 1 is really going to show a lot as to where Emmanuel Forbes is in his development and how this coaching staff feels about Emmanuel Forbes at that point. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section, let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release informative and opinionated videos just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content. Again, I'm working on my record prediction video, which is going to be extremely detailed, so make sure you buckle up and you have some time set aside for that, because that video may end up being like a whole hour long. So make sure you stay tuned for that. I'm gonna keep y'all updated on everything OTAs, any information that I could get, I got y'all. And I'm still working on film sessions for the rookie class and notable and drafted free agents, so stay tuned for that. And of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about all of this. Luke McCaffrey's potential at the X, Quan Martin's potential at free safety, Emmanuel Forbes not starting yet. Let me know how you feel about all of these situations, if you agree or disagree with any of my points. Of course, I really appreciate y'all. Make sure you do not leave this video without leaving a like, and I'm gonna catch y'all later with another video later on today, even though it's right now, it's 11:53 p.m. Friday, May 17th. But when I say today, I mean Saturday, because by the time this video actually gets edited and out to y'all, it will already be Saturday. So make sure y'all stay tuned for another video that's going to come out May 18th on Saturday. Stay tuned. Appreciate y'all. I'm out.